Australia was, I think, the early days of the superannuation system reform.
Yeah.
Where Paul Keating, the then finance minister, if I recollect, they had a pay-as-you-go pension system, which they reckoned was not viable because as the population ages, you have intergenerational wealth transfer. And they introduced the superannuation system, which I believe initially was 8 or 9% contribution. So tell us a little bit about how the Australian superannuation system works.
So it's a little bit different from here. So the superannuation effectively is looked at as a component of your remuneration. So there isn't a sharing of the burden between the employee and the employer. It's effectively a portion of your remuneration that's cut off to be contributed to the superannuation funds. I think the government there has a target to build it up to 15%. I think at this moment it's somewhere around 12 or 12.5%. But because you're talking a relatively rich country with very high per capita incomes, so the superannuation industry by itself is now in terms of assets under management about 4 trillion Australian dollars, and it's forecast to grow 8 to 10 trillion Australian dollars by the 2040s, early 2040s. So it's a very large pool of institutional capital that's effectively so far been largely invested in Australia simply because of currency risks and global volatility and all that.
So at the individual level, Asante, it's a portable account, right?
Yeah,
it's not a like in some countries you have certain vocations, miners, teachers.
Yeah.
The famous Canadian pension funds.
Yeah.
You have the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund, etc. But Australia does not operate that way, right? Or the public sector has their own funds.
Public sector has some of their own funds, but
right.
I think there are, in certain public employers, I think there are restrictions on where you can take your super.
Right.
But within the private sector, you can effectively take your super to any provider.
So you have a competitive market.
Yeah,
like you decide who will have your bank account.
Yeah.
You decide who your super provider is going to be.
Yeah.
And you can switch.
Yeah, you can switch.
You can switch X number of times a year. Or?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there is a cap on how much you can switch.
Okay.
So effectively, you can take your. Obviously, there is every time you exit and enter, there are transaction fees. Usually there is no penalty or anything, but there's obviously transaction fees. So you don't want to be switching too much. But yes, it's very common there to switch super funds from time to time.